Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for joining this guest lecture by Professor Rajgopal Shanai. Actually, I requested him yesterday and he was very nice and happy to accept this invitation because one of our students could not do the presentation today. So Dr. Shanai, thank you very much. He will present 3 cases of intestinal obstruction. It will be an interactive session. All of you please participate and ask all your doubts. Over to you, Dr. Shanai.
Dr. Shivaram, Dr. Ravi Shankar, and Dr. Lakshman, all of you, thank you for giving this opportunity. And I believe these are all learning sessions and more practical sessions. So these are the 3 case capsules. As you know that intestinal obstruction is a very common problem. It can occur in a neonate to 100 years of age. No age is bad for a intestinal obstruction. So from the postgraduate angle, when the question appears, you need to understand the good classification so that, when you classify things, will get into a stream like say dynamic, adynamic, then you have got acute and chronic. Classical example is carcinoma of the colon. Rectosigmoids can present as acute obstruction. Carcinoma of the cecum can present as even a chronic and then acute and a chronic also. Ileocecal tuberculosis. There are many examples. You will also classify them lumen, wall, and outside. I'm not going to discuss on those lines, which are all given in the standard books, and you are supposed to refer them and get into the diagnosis. So with this background, I bring you greetings from Academy of Manipal Academy of Higher Education. Our case experience are only from our hospital. So with this, without wasting much time, I will go ahead with the case capsule number 1. So he is a 23-year-old male student from Udupi. Look at that anorectal malformation when he was 3 months old. See, when you say 3 months old, you need to understand in your mind what may be that anorectal anomaly, right? That means it is not at birth. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Later, you also find some childhood, some dribbling of urine. Then he was evaluated for same and told that it will be normal later. However, from the age of 10, he did not have any urinary complaint. So this is what he comes and tells us. No other records are available. This is the story of the patient. So obviously, it cannot be, doesn't look like a imperforate anus because he has got underwent a surgery at the age of some 3 months. It is also possible sometimes with or without a fistula, but anyway, it may be a low anomaly also. Let us come to that later. Now you see that patient took 3 more days from the recovery and he passed stools on the 7th day. Then purgatives were given. First 30 days, no complaint. After 3 years, occasional constipation, and follow up 10 years normal. So actually speaking, he has no complaints now related to colon. From then, now a month in October, so he gets admitted to urology department. For what? Abdominal pain on the left side and radiation to the back. A diagnosis of left pelvic calculus means calculus in the pelvis. So for which he undergoes a PCNL. This is a few years back. And at the time of discharge, he did not have any complaints. This is on the left side, right? Okay. Now 30 days later, this is the time actually he comes to me. Abdominal pain more central, colicky, and the main complaint to look at that, cannot wear his belt. What does it mean? It means only distension. That's all. Simple. This is how patient tells you. Vomiting is 3 times, food particle and bile. So constipation not only present, but retrospective. I asked him, then he said, yes, he has been used to this constipation. So he doesn't complain is the major issue. And now he is not passing Phlear test. So this is how he presents. And to summarize, his vitals were stable and there was some intestinal loop or a mass felt on the left upper abdomen. And PR empty, rectal sphincter tone adequate. So just quickly to tell you that his anorectal anomaly was normal. Now no problem there. Now, so now I would like to ask anyone for Hari or Saurav or Ajit or somebody, Janani. This is in the left upper abdomen, young boy, and I palpated. This is how it is, some kind of a tenderness. And I already told you there is some intestinal loops like thing I am feeling. So can just one of you unmute and say what can be this mass like thing I am feeling?
Sir, distended bowel loop, sir. I mean,
Yes, correct. What?
So jejunum, sir, could it be?
Okay, you will consider as a jejunal loop, that is fine. You mean to say one or two distended jejunal loops, that is fine. Do you have any other diagnosis? This is a case of intestinal obstruction, basically pain abdomen, vomiting, distension. And one is jejunal loop, 100% true. Anything else? Think of a differential diagnosis. This is how we extract answers from you. When you feel a large distended loop in the abdomen, what things come into your mind? Yes.
with the history, Hirschsprung disease.
Okay, I appreciate your diagnosis because could be an adult Hirschsprung with some obstruction. All right, we'll take it like that. Yes. Anything else? Okay, I will move on. So our clinical diagnosis is intestinal obstruction, and what is the cause? I appreciate you talking about adult Hirschsprung. Good. So there are one or two things you need to understand. Whenever you have a young patient, he's early and he already had one congenital anomaly, something in the anorectal region is undergone. So this is how we made a diagnosis. There is a definite mechanical obstruction. Tuberculosis was considered is not because it does not have any proof there, but it's one of the common problem in India. Second is malrotation. Third is adult Hirschsprung. This is how the working goes on. Dr. Ravi Shankar, or you would like to add anything else at this juncture? Just to.
No, I think, sir, yeah, what you are thinking along the lines is correct, because there is no other clue in the history or
Nothing.
in the examination. So these are the most likely, possibilities.
Yes. Okay, I will go now. Put a important slide now. Total counts were elevated. There was some infection. Rest of the things were normal, and we took one chest X-ray, which is normal. And this is the plain X-ray abdomen erect. Now, Dr. Hari or Ajit or somebody can generally or take it and give me what may be this loop. Yes. Please come out with the answer. Doesn't matter. This is a learning session. So please feel free. Everyone has done blunders in this case, including me. So
Yeah.
don't worry when we look at this kind of a pictures.
Anybody? Dr. Vanita, you can
Yes.
tell something.
Saurav?
Vanita, you can unmute. Saurav.
Sir, just looks like a distended bowel loose with air fluid levels with with the lines completely extending through the entire length of the lumen. So it's probably a small lumen only, sir. Small gut.
So you still feel that it could be small bowel. You mean to say jejunum has become so grossly dilated? Do you think like that? Do you feel the jejunal, what are those jejunal folds? Valvulae are so much separated like this. You look at one.
No, sir, it cannot be. But just thinking it extends to the entire line. Hostrations will be halfway through. That's why I'm thinking.
What is that? This small dot plug mottle like of a thing is seen here.
So it is fecal loading, sir.
So do you now get a clue that if I say this could be a colon means fecal matter with this, do you have any other answers with your diagnosis? Try. Yes.
So could it be a sigmoid volvulus, sir?
Okay, we'll come to that. So we also thought something like that. Okay, I will not, I'll go further just to give you, this is the supine picture. This is the supine picture. Actually, if you see the Hostra are the actually incomplete folds are here. These are actually incomplete. It was not very clear in this. Here it was looking like a complete fold, but this is actually a large bowel with the colon, which is with the loaded fecal matter here. And what happened to the small bowel loops, etc.? Are they visible?
No, sir.
Okay. What about the rectum supine position picture? There's hardly anything this side. There's nothing there. Just to compare. So this is the erect picture. Erect picture can tell you some obstruction. And in the supine position, you will see the advantage. You know the distal limit of the gas. That is one of the advantage of the level of the obstruction. So this is a colon. So this is how we thought of a diagnosis. And this is how the working diagnosis. I'm not trying to say this is the diagnosis. We need to have some diagnosis in the mind and proceed. Dr. Ravi Shankar or Dr. Shivaram, anything else you would like to add at this juncture?
Oh, Dr. Shenoy, just
Yes.
before this,
Yes,
students have to say whether it is small bowel obstruction or
Correct.
before that or large bowel obstruction.
correct.
And if they say small bowel obstruction, why they say small bowel?
Yes,
If it is large bowel, why they say large bowel?
yes.
So you asked where is the small bowel in this? Are all they are pushed to the right side, clumped together on the right side, or
Yes,
You can't see the small bowel at all.
you can't see at all?
Just large
Yeah.
bowel. The
completely.
left colon that is dilated.
Yes. So, shall we proceed?
Yes,
Sure,
sir.
sure.
Yes. So with this in mind, I'm going to put some CT pictures. It may not show the 100% but accuracy. This is one X-ray which is taken at during the CT called CT skygram, and then just watch and follow this one by one pictures. That's how the CT images are taken. So it may be a little difficult for everyone to come to a proper diagnosis. So if you trace, I'll go back again. So from here, if you trace down every picture, you will see the colon is whatever the picture. Anybody can got a hint of the diagnosis. Is it sigmoid volvulus? Is it sigmoid volvulus? Yes.
Some obstruction in the sigmoid region, sir, probably.
Okay. It is little difficult because we don't have many images, but if you see carefully, end of this picture here, and you see what is this looking like, this area, like a fan shaped things are coming here.
Yes,
This-
it's looked like a mass only, sir. Probably ileocecal region tuberculosis is looking like that.
What I wanted you to appreciate is this is a small bowel area. In other
Okay.
words, this kind of a fan of mesentery. Anyway, which is a further images. See now, it's coming this side. The
So
last.
cecal volvulus, sir.
Now we'll come to the diagnosis. So Ravi Shankar has hit the nail on the head. So the diagnosis of cecal volvulus has been given. Now, retrospectively, I will go back and put that picture to you again for the benefit of postgraduates. Typically, cecal volvulus produces a round shadow on the left side of the abdomen. Shadow. I am talking about when you take an X-ray. Because when the cecum turns, it goes almost occupies the center. Actually, may not be too high, somewhere here. This is one. But in our, if you look at this, this picture, it is not looking like the classical cecal volvulus.
Correct.
Now, I don't want to ask Ravi Shankar, he has given the diagnosis, but postgraduates, if you think this is cecal volvulus is correct, what might have happened to see colon on this side? I have given a clue to you. You understand the question? It is a cecal volvulus, correct. Then what is that colon? You are seeing that side. Yes?
Mal rotated.
Sorry?
malrotation?
In basically, I will just explain to you quickly. So diagnosis is cecal volvulus with the ascending colon completely on the left side. This is a poor part of the malrotation more than anything, what has been called as cecal bascule. I will come to this terminology very soon. Just to give an exploration, look at that ascending colon. This is ascending colon which is dilated. It is on the left side. That is what you saw as a fecal matter and vertical structure. These are the hyperemia. And look at that cecum. It is not even 10 centimeter. It is more than that. So much stretched here. That's the area. You can see the tinea there. Now, this is just to give you some idea. And just look at that. Remember, this is the head end. This is head end. This is lower end. This is that ascending colon on the left side. I have not, this is in this picture, you can't see. There is a membrane coming from the ascending colon to the abdominal wall, this side, on the right side. So this is the membrane coming to the abdominal wall. This is that same dilated portion. What I did at this juncture, because such a massive dilatation, this was my first case, and it usually happens in the middle of the night like this. First case, when I say first experience with this type of a case. So I did appendicectomy. The reason of doing appendicectomy was to decompress. So through the same end, first I decompressed the entire ascending colon, put a purse string and closed that, and divided that band, whatever is going, and brought the cecum and ascending colon to the right side, right? Entire right colon, right colon was turned to the left, no gangrene, fibrous band. So what I did, unfolding, decompression, and I did a cecopexy and colopexy. What I mean to say is the ascending colon and the cecum, I just put some non-absorbable suture to the abdominal wall. I have not done resection. Remember, patient's age is only 23, and this is the finding. Now, before I proceed, he did well, and he's doing well. Now, I just brought this to bring your attention. Various, I'll first finish off the little bit of review of the literature, then we'll ask other modalities. So just to quickly tell you, cecal volvulus also with the right colonic volvulus. This can happen when the cecum and ascending colon are on a mesentery. See, remember, in comparison with the sigmoid volvulus, this typically occurs in younger age group. This is one example. And half the patient cecum twists and inverts so that pole of the cecum and appendix could occupy any of the left upper quadrant. This is the rotation. That's what happens. So even though there is considerable distension of the cecum, 1 or 2 haustral markings can usually be seen. This is exactly one of your postgraduate mentioned about the haustral marking. Interestingly, sigmoid volvulus, when it is distended, you will not see any haustral markings. This is for when you see in a X-ray abdomen. So in sigmoid volvulus, there are no haustra. Distended cecum can be identified as a large viscus, which may fall anywhere in the abdomen. The word nomenclature, just to understand for postgraduate, it's a bascule. These are the description. Mechanism is a torsion or a hyperflexion of an enlarged, poorly fixed, hypermobile cecum. Is it clear? So if it is a axial twisting of the cecum, ileum and ascending colon, and that is what constitutes almost 90% of cecal volvulus, right? So that is some of the etiological factor, why it happens. It's a rotation. That's what happens in a deficient fixation to the retroperitoneal structures. So what happens, that kind of a thin membrane which is attached to the retroperitoneum, when it is hypermobile, the twisting takes place along with the band. That is what happens in a cecal volvulus. So these are some of the factors. Now look at this. What is this renal position? I would like to bring your attention, PCNL. To do a PCNL, you put that renal position. I'm not sure whether you have seen that table. So that, it is like some kind of a thing. So that, and with a tilt. So there was some cecal volvulus reported after you put that cecal position with a tilt. on the left lateral or a right lateral. Interestingly, in our patient, the stone was on the left side. If it were to be on the right side, I could have imagined that a little bit of a tilt. Whatever it is, these are some of the factors which causes a cecal volvulus. I would also like to mention, whenever if you see come across any patient who has one anomaly at birth or a young patient, always think of he may be having other anomalies. This is one classical example. Who had something in the, mostly it was imperforate anus. He might have passed a little bit of stools, but may not be a total this one. But this is all the associated anomalies what this patient can have with this kind of a picture, whatever you are seeing. The list is quite big here. So esophageal atresia, so many anomalies one can have. This is basically a cecal volvulus. So now comments from the floor, or anybody can ask some questions. Whatever I know, I will tell.
Very nice case, Dr. Shanai. Very rare. I don't think we have not seen cecal volvulus. What was that congenital anomaly child had got surgery when he was?
I feel they are coming from a little poor socioeconomic ground.
Okay.
Probably he might have had a, I believe, anal stenosis or a narrowing. Might have had imperforate anus, for which they would have undergone a low, maybe a low anomaly. Somebody would have done a anal, what is that, repair from below itself.
Right, right.
I believe that is the. Yes.
Sir, can I come?
Sir, please.
Sir, for mobile cecum, are we supposed to do the cecopexy? My professor used to do in the past. Now we are going ahead with the laparoscopy. It has been stopped. But in the previous they used to fix the cecum when it is mobile. How is your opinion, sir, about that?
First of all, sir, we will not be able to get a diagnosis of this unless patient has a problem like this. Number one. So when you encounter a cecum which is hypermobile, when I say cecopexy, just putting 2 or 3 sutures to the lateral abdominal wall is better. That is what I always felt, rather than putting it to the. What type of a cecopexy you wanted, sir? Like they used to do?
They like, as you told, some non-abdominal 3 sutures for laterally they put it to the lateral pelvic wall through the tinea of the cecum.
The decision here was a little confusion in the sense whether to go ahead with the resection. But I felt a young patient and doing a hemicolectomy, and that colon also was loaded. Some fecal matter was also there. Getting ileostomy, all those things were problematic. And once we unfolded it and once I decompressed, it really, it was very healthy. And somehow we managed just putting simple sutures.
Decompression through the appendicular stump, sir. How exactly you did that, sir?
It is just like how they used to prepare the colon for sometimes irrigation, total colonic irrigation. Classical appendicectomy I did, sir. But in this case, I did not leave any stump. So I went up to the cecum there, and as if there you can see the cecal opening, and through which put a catheter and first empty empty the contents. And of course, when bursting was ready there, and it has to be done without any contamination of the peritoneal cavity with MOPS all.
You have not done cecostomy?
No, I have not done cecostomy. Once I close that with the 2 layers, I just put lateral abdominal sutures. That's all.
Sir, for closed loop large bowel obstruction, this is one of the things. You use the appendicular stump to put a catheter and do on-table lavage or on-table irrigation, and then do anastomosis. So that is one of the classical things. I think what you have done is very acceptable, because in a young patient, as you say, if you have to do a right hemicolectomy, you are going to sacrifice the ileocecal valve, which may give him troublesome diarrhea, throughout his life.
Absorption issue also will come, and a young boy. So I think in an emergency, you should, try with the crisis. That is very important to know that getting one more resection, adding on to the time, as well as the complication related to long term, as well as there was no indication for resection. That's
Yeah.
what I thought.
If there was a gangrene or anything, then
Yes.
you would have
Yeah, you have to
considered.
do it.
Definitely, definitely.
Dr. Shanai, there is a question in the box. Is there a need for ileostomy in this case?
There is no way you can it will decompress because it's a complete wallness. So
Ileostomy, no role. Right.
I think what Dr. Nooli asked about the cecostomy, maybe if there was any doubt about the viability or whatever, then you might have done a cecostomy. But because you are quite happy with at the end, the cecum was normal, healthy and normal. I don't think there is any role for cecostomy either.
Sir, you are talking about the cecostomy by putting a tube inside the cecum and bringing it out. Is that?
I think that is what I think Dr. Nooli meant.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Sir, somehow over a period of time, the cecostomy, the role has become very, very less and almost nil now, because invariably, sir, cecostomy does not work. I have done cecostomy and burnt my fingers, because whatever you do, it is not a clear fluid. Means it will come out from the side of the tube. This is a contaminated ileal content or whatever. It comes from the side of the tube and causes a peritonitis. Somehow it doesn't defunction well. This is my personal opinion, and I think you can. Yes,
Can we go to the next case, Dr. Shanai?
Yes. Yeah, so we'll go to the second case, another case. It is a very simple case. 75-year-old man who had undergone fracture fixation of the humerus with the plating, and they normally put a bone graft, and usually bone grafts are taken from iliac crest. This is how it is done. And he presents again with the same place implant fracture after 1 year. And again, the orthopedicians did the surgery, and obviously tricortical bone graft harvested from the iliac crest. This is about this patient. Yeah, this is we were called to see patient has got some abdominal distension and tense swelling. This is not the tense swelling, this is some abdominal distension. And this is that iliac crest area, the bone graft, 2 times they have done. And there was something there. So in the post-operative period, patient develops a tender swelling at the graft site. It was managed conservatively, thinking that it's a hematoma, like any other. Following 2 days, his symptoms became worse, and we were given a consultation. My colleague saw this patient, told me, sir, there is some tenderness and most probably hematoma infected. I have asked for a investigation. Somehow with the interest, it's a referral consultation. I also went there. I palpated it, tenderness was there, but you see that one clinical sign, very important, there is a gurgle. So moment you have a gurgle means, that you should think of a bowel. What happens sometimes because of the tenderness, somebody would not have palpated it properly. So this is important to realize that what mind doesn't know, eyes cannot see. Only if you carefully palpated it, here and there some gurgle. So there was no impulsion cough, but gentle percussion, he allowed me, tympanic note was there, and mild lower abdominal distension was there. Can I ask again some 1 or 2 postgraduates, do you think anything else, something is cooking there? Yes, anybody? Hari, Saurav,
Yes,
or
yes.
yeah, please.
Hernia in that
Sir,
side, sir.
Sir,
Yes,
Hernia in that iliac crest, donor
Yes.
side.
very good.
Yes.
So we asked for a ultrasound. They said intestinal loop, and a CCT was asked. So look at this carefully. This is the area, and you can see this is the actually round structure, and it has gone here like that. Air-filled pockets are there. You can see, this is the bone iliac crest. That you can see the defect. How much defect is there? Large defect. I will show a reconstruct image of the CT here. So I'll show the review of the literature later. Just compare this side. Actually, this is a turned one. You can see this is actually right side. So you see the amount which is removed here. 2 times operated. So herniation of the cecum from the bone graft donor site, and patient has presented with the intestinal obstruction after 2 weeks. So we explored, this is that edge. It's a fibro-aponeurotic layer. Once you have taken out the graft, there they would have probably made a nick there or injured. So fibro-aponeurotic layer is there. You can see all around. That's the cecum, and that's what you can see here. It was a little difficult in the sense you really cannot have a proper fixation here. So somehow the sac was identified, and we sutured it, and we put a mesh and covered it. So this is a case of a iliac crest graft site hernia. Again, one of the uncommon hernia, but these are some of the short notes for you people. It's that iliac crest is the frequently grafted, but see, no surgery should be taken very lightly. Look at the complications related to this. Normally, we don't do it. We mean general surgeon, but so many arteries can be damaged here. Nerves can be damaged here. If you go into the depth, you see the urethral injury. All these are described in the literature following a simple iliac crest graft harvesting. So including gastrointestinal hernia, hematoma, pelvic instability, fractures, etc. So this is a herniation through the wing of the ileum after grafting is an extremely rare complication. So that is the case of if we have reported this iliac crest graft site hernia. Yes, anything else, sir?
Yeah, Dr. Shanai, one question.
Yes.
Whether, I don't know who is Dr. Iyer, is it? Whether lap hernia can be preferred over open in this case?
See, remember, firstly, there is an obstruction here. And secondly, you are talking about how will you approach this area?
Approach the hernia, correct. I think the fixation is the big problem here.
Yes.
Whether you do laparoscopy or open. You had any suspicion of viability or anything in this bowel because there was tenderness?
Tenderness is the tenderness we happen in a distended loop. Patient did not have toxicity. So we did not have really a suspicion of a gangrene.
Right.
But whenever there's an obstruction, and we also, our experience of this type of cases are rare. We don't know what really has happened. So we thought we'll go ahead. Maybe.
Sir,
yes.
Where did you fix the mesh, sir?
That is what I said, sir. This is how it is. So, for example, this is after delivery. This is the first picture. I pulled it out, and this is the cecum. What I did is a little bit of mobilization I could give and push back this, and this is the edge here. So now after suturing here, this is the sac, and after that I put the mesh somewhere here. I'm not sure where that second this mesh picture has gone. This is the area, this one. So I will tell that it may not be the best repair I have done, sir, because we don't have the proper place to suture it, actually speaking.
Correct, sir.
So,
difficult, yeah.
Somehow he has not yet come with the recurrence, so we thought we'll see later.
Yeah.
Yes.
There is a role for hybrid repair in such cases. If the bowel is not too much distended, obstructed, you can put a laparoscopy, look from inside, pull the bowel, and then try to repair from inside or outside also. Why they did go through the same site on the two surgeries? They could have chosen the other side.
And I asked that question actually to them. They said they have done for earlier few cases, and they never got this complication. So I told them we are also seeing for the first time a complication like this.
Very rare. Doctor, anybody has seen this hernia?
No.
All these are some of the short notes can appear for postgraduates.
I think Dr. Lakshman had a cecal so that was an inclusion cyst, not a cecal volvulus. I think there was cecal volvulus also. I think I and Dr. Lakshman both have had one case each.
Yeah, we've had a cecal volvulus before, but definitely not this iliac crest graft site hernia. Yeah.
So probably that is the first case and last case, which probably I'll have. This is my, yeah. Now we'll come to the another last case of today's, another case of a this young patient, and he has come with the colic abdominal pain 1 week, and insidious and diffuse, and then he said some abdominal distension 2 days, not past flatus, stools, vomited. So obviously the diagnosis of intestinal obstruction is made here, and he was nil coma, but then he used to tell once in a while he used to get colic, and used to take some cyclopam, etc., PPAI, etc., and used to get relieved. So during the clinical examination, you find a distension present and some vague mass in the right iliac fossa. Remember, this is a very short duration of presentation, but a previous history of colics and some gurgle there, doubtful guarding, no step ladder peristalsis, tympanic note was present. This is what is the picture. Obviously no gangrene here, very stable patient, no illness to suggest tuberculosis, anything like that. So, but as I mentioned to you, you need to start from the working diagnosis, because you need to give a diagnosis. You can't straight away tell intestinal obstruction. You say, I think of this, I may be thinking this, 2, 3 diagnosis. And this is how we proceeded. Yes, there's nothing much clue here to give a diagnosis. For the benefit of postgraduates, adhesion still continue to be the common cause, but this patient has not undergone any surgery, more so in a female, because of the obstetric and the gynec, whether it's hysterectomy, cesarean section, family planning, etc. He never had any perforations before. So perforation peritonitis is one of the other common cause of adhesion. And as I mentioned to you, tuberculosis is another cause. Obstructed hernia to be ruled out in all patients. When you do not get a clue, please look at the inguinal orifice and see any hernia patient has got. So with this, we moved on to some of the tests. There's some total counts were elevated here, and we all case of acute abdomen, we do ask lipase, even though we are sure that it's intestinal obstruction. AST, ALT were elevated. It could not really correlate at this juncture. This is the X-ray test taken in the supine position. Probably now this is the X-ray. Yeah, one postgraduate. Can you just comment on this X-ray here? One left side and right side. Yes. Look at some peculiar patterning, like of the. You would have seen sometimes intestinal obstruction how they come. Multiple gas fluid levels in the center, etc. Yes. Anybody? Dr.
Final year postgraduates.
Hari or Vanita?
No problem. Don't worry. Yes.
Don't worry. Please attempt.
Vanita, please come on.
Sir, on the left side X-ray, I can see air fluid levels in the periphery, sir.
I fully agree with you. Normally, do you get air fluid levels like this here?
No, sir. Usually not in periphery. Usually in small bowel obstruction in center, we will see, sir, most of the times.
And in if there's a rectosigmoid obstruction, you will get more colon here, no? Colon. Typical descending colon, transverse colon, etc. And look at this also, one loop here. Can you see this? See that?
Yes, sir.
So this is erect and this is supine here. As I already mentioned to you, supine may not show the air fluid like this, but it will show the distal limit of the air. It's difficult to note here. So this is how the picture comes. So obviously a diagnosis of obstruction is clear. By looking at the pattern, again, it looks to be a small bowel only. This looks like a small bowel obstruction only. And we would like to consider so many causes I have already told you, but it was not fitting in it. That's why we say abdomen is a Pandora's box. So we ask for an ultrasound. Somebody can ask why you have done ultrasound. As we said, no extension on the clinical examination and easy to make it. So they said some thickening of the loops in the right iliac fossa, and they could not make out any diagnosis. So CECT was done. Okay, this is the first diagram. And then these are some images I just could get some few images and put it, just concentrate here. So that's how it is. This is how it is. And so we can see, but also see the levels. This is the iliac crest, and that's how it is. And this is another picture. So, so this is the CT diagnosis. Dilated loops with the transition point at the right iliac fossa and umbilical region forming a closed loop obstruction, and they gave a diagnosis of possibility of internal hernia, and that too they gave a diagnosis of a transmesenteric hernia. Some comments from Ravi Shankar or
Sir, you didn't consider appendicitis and its complication as one of the differential diagnosis?
but patient never had any fever and no right iliac fossa tenderness. So we never considered a DD5. We thought of a acute obstruction and we did not consider appendicitis. Problem was somewhere here, so we did not consider. I just
Dr. Shanaik,
yes, please.
Dr. Lakshman has put consider internal hernia, abdominal cocoon, and mall rotation are always considered in differential diagnosis. That's
Any
very
other?
appropriate.
Yes.
Postgraduates, anything else?
Yes, we
Right.
will slowly move on. That is their diagnosis. So transmesenteric hernia, internal hernia. Again, postgraduates go and read about the internal herniation. This is a transmesenteric. There's some fossa near the duodenojejunal flexure and also near the cecum. So just go and read about that. Sometimes, rarely, they will ask you. So we proceeded with the exploratory laparoscopy. Yeah. So now, as soon as you open the abdomen, my assistant opened, then he said, called me and sir, this is the, after opening, this is the picture. They mentioned, no doubt it is at the ileocecal region, but this is umbilicus, this is the head end. It was more or less in the umbilical region, actually, this whatever you are seeing now. What is this, Dr. Hari or somebody? Yes? Yes? Do you see the bowels like that whenever you open the abdomen?
Very much distended and
Distended.
Is it distended or look at the difference between this
Sir.
and this? Look at this and this. So what is this?
Edematous.
Sorry?
Edematous bowels.
Edematous. Edematous, or see this. Here, are you seeing a separate, we have actually 6 meters of the small intestine, 6 meters. Are they looking matted together or?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Interloop adhesions.
Yes, sir.
are
Matted together.
Interloop adhesions, or they are all covered by some membrane, what Dr. Lakshman has hinted.
Cocoon, sir.
So this is how it is. So initially, again, we thought of adhesions and like this, extended the incision, and this is how it comes. Now, some attempt was made, and there was some 1 or 2 perforation was made here, and some resection had to be done. Separation of the membrane was become extremely difficult here, and resection anastomosis was done for that little bit of longer segment. And this is actually the proximal bowel, not much of a gross distension. So this is the membrane which was covering.
Rajgopal sir, can I request you to go back to the lateral CT, because
yes, 1 minute.
I really thought it showed that, see this part, which is,
you are showing this.
That is the part I was trying to show. That gives you a clear hint that it is something covered, it like a cocoon, sir.
Here, this membrane.
Yes, that bit, yeah, that bit, you're showing it exactly. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Yeah, please go ahead.
So what they gave a diagnosis, we went and asked that closed loop obstruction. They thought 1 loop is here, 1 loop is here, and that's how they gave a diagnosis of closed loop. Anyway, well taken, sir. You are finding your points. So now this is how it was. So diagnosis was a abdominal cocoon separation could result in tears, and some resection could be done, was done, and anastomosis. Post-operatively, patient had a little bit of a leak and actually it subsided. And final diagnosis, when we gave histopathology diagnosis, they said there was some ischemia and gangrene, no granuloma, no tuberculosis, and they gave a diagnosis of this is a case of abdominal cocoon syndrome. The purpose of presentation of this syndrome, I will tell you the reason. At any postgraduate, please tell me what are the common causes of abdominal cocoon. Dr. Hari or Janani or whoever it is. Yes. Yes.
We have some students from Madurai Medical College.
Yeah, please.
Want to come out and tell? I don't know his name.
Anyone
Postgraduate from Madurai.
Even Manipal, if anyone is there, you can also answer. No problem.
Yeah.
Don't worry. This is a teaching session. This is
Correct.
not a idea. Yeah, please. Yes.
Tuberculosis, sir.
The most common tuberculosis, sir. Most commonly.
The whole purpose of bringing this today, even though pathologists will give a report like this, there is a tendency to start the patient on tuberculosis. That should not be done. So you should realize there are many causes of abdominal cocoon. So one is tuberculosis. I agree. Anything else? Anything
Congenital.
else?
See if previously any.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Say any malignancies like gist or dermoids. So could
What
it be, sir? Malignancy, any malignancy, sir?
No. Question is a membrane. You know what a cocoon means? You know silkworm, silk, cocoon.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You can't say malignancy, gist and all. They are separate. Entities are separate. Anyone? You need to have a membrane when you open the abdomen. That gives you a diagnosis. I agree. Tuberculosis is one of the causes. Remember, there are so many causes of tuberculosis of the abdomen. It can be ascitic, loculated, fibrous, encysted, so many. But cocoon is also there, but not all that common like how you think. It is not correct to start this patient on anti-tuberculosis treatment. I just want to bring your attention to a few important things here. There should be a fibrocollagenous membrane. That is what is called as a cocoon. And it's one of the causes because the intestinal loops within, they may kink or they may cause obstruction. And predominantly it is seen in tropical and subtropical countries like ours, right? So mass is, what is that mass you are feeling is encapsulated cluster of the bowel loops. I just want to bring your attention to this word retrograde menstruation. The first report of this by this, I think it's Singapore or Hong Kong, he is the one who described this, Fu et al. 10 young girls, which is occurring in the, they got this obstruction 2 years after the menarche, and they postulated a theory of chemical peritonitis caused by the retrograde menstruation. And this is how he gave the original article report. But this theory has not been accepted now. But this is how we started the concept. Apart from tuberculosis, this is how the original paper. Now, what are the other things? So, retrograde peritonitis via fallopian tubes. So, it's not necessarily only a retrograde menstruation, but it can be a low-grade infection, which is very well known in a female. Like, they are also vulnerable for tuberculosis, spreading of the infection via the fallopian tubes. So this is one of the possibilities of peritoneal encapsulation by microorganisms which are of low grade, number one. As Shivaram has already told you, whenever you have some fibrous structures, membranes, always remember a congenital etiology as a second cause, right? So in which so some theory has been mentioned related to 12th week of gestation yolk sac and the role of momentum in forming a abdominal cocoon. Now there are many other acquired causes here. Remember today Levin shunt and CAPD. CAPD is one of the commonly it is done. So these are the patients because of that irritant, whatever ambulatory peritoneal dialysis, the catheter itself, and the fluid contents can give rise to fibrotic reaction. We use sometimes lot of povidone iodine and alpha adrenergic blocker, Bactolol. So abdominal cocoon is again a short note for you. When you encounter pathologists give a diagnosis of no tuberculosis, only cocoon, there's no role to start anti-tuberculosis treatment unless you have a clinical ground, strong ground of a fever or loss of weight, etc. So these are the secondary causes of abdominal cocoon. So as I mentioned to you, this is the tuberculosis. You can read about the case reports of abdominal cocoon. And one other also seen in meconium peritonitis with the cocoon. So look at that, it's in a neonate. Child presented with the intestinal obstruction. There was already a meconium which is ruptured. Meconium has caused the peritonitis and a cocoon. So this is of course in a neonate. So these are the various other causes of a abdominal cocoon. So not only tuberculosis. So that is what is that's where I end my talk. So any questions, comments, suggestions are welcome. And please
Dr.
give.
Shanai, it was a wonderful presentation, all rare cases, some of them which we had never seen also. And abdominal cocoon was very interesting. Any questions, postgraduates? Dr. Naz, you have some localized peritonitis can cause abdominal cocoon?
Localized
Possible?
localized peritonitis can definitely cause a peritoneal reaction, and usually causes adhesions, and if it goes to a low grade continuous infection, probably that is what I think stimulates the peritoneum for a overgrowth of a fibrous tissue, fibrinous material, which gets converted into a fibrous membrane. Usually bands are common, bands.
Bands. Spontaneous bacterial peritonitis.
Yeah,
Right.
I think, yeah, it is anything which is a peritoneal irritant probably can give rise to, but I just quoted some of the common things which have been mentioned in the literature.
Right.
So anecdotal cases probably are possible.
Rajgopal sir, congratulations on a lovely presentation, interesting cases and very well worked up. Really nice. I enjoyed it.
I have one doubt, sir. Can I ask?
Yeah, please.
What is the incidence of post-operative recurrence of non-tuberculous cocoons? How do you follow these patients?
Sir, basically, let me tell you, I had only 2 cases of abdominal cocoon. And in this patient, maybe we were lucky. This was...
No. What is the theory book says? How to follow and what are the incidence of recurrences?
No, sir, I really do not know, because if there is a definite precipitating factor, we can tell the patient to, otherwise I have no idea. Recurrence, I do not know. Yes, any
Right.
other?
Any other questions? Right. Dr. Shanai, can you differentiate the congenital form of cocoon from the other acquired varieties?
Yeah, the going back to that is why, for the sake of postgraduates, as I mentioned to you, look at this age of this patient, relatively young,
right.
And there is no other history. As I mentioned to you, there is no tuberculosis history, in the sense tuberculosis did not have history, but general loss of weight or no fever, nothing, no diarrhea, nothing. So, and then no other causes, and we have ruled out adhesions, previous surgery, male patient, hernia is not there. So probably in such patients, we would like to think of a congenital etiology. If this same patient were to, just for bring attention of sensitize yourself to these causes, in a patient who has undergone again here CAPD, somebody asked, no, bacterial peritonitis, spontaneous. Some of these patients probably, if they live longer, probably they will also may develop a fibrous membrane, and they may develop a cocoon. So this is just to know the causes. So that's all. I have selected this as a last moment of this one because instead of talking about the intestinal obstruction, it's an important topic. Everybody should know management
Yes.
of common problems also, whether it's obstructed hernia or a stricture or etc. Then we thought make it interesting to bring this with some images and worked out cases, so that case
Very-
capsules will bring more attention. That's the idea.
Thank you, Professor Shanai. I think it was a wonderful job done and very good interaction. You have a lot of people who are joined, 56 postgrad, including postgraduates. That speaks volumes about your popularity also. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. Good night to everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you
night.
very much, sir.
Good night.